My body, my mind doesn't take me.
Are you about to go to work? Are you going to?
No,
This is fresh water, right? Well, you never know. I have to. What? Yes. Oh, thank you. I had a crumb of a cookie. Oh, Krishna. I forgot my phone. I will be back in 2 minutes. Sorry. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvrajagacharya Asatara Satashishi Madhusavangre Stacey Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai, Mathura Dhama Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai, Gangamai Juna Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktarinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya. Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesa Sunyavadi Paskachade Satarane Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Bitam Stam Sajivam Sadvoitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Bitamscha Anchakalpatubhascha Kripasindhavya Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So it's May 20th, 2024, Hillsborough, North Carolina, New Goloka. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 51, about Muchukunda, Text 59. Pralobito vararyatvam apramadaya viditat apramadaya vidhitat nadir ekanta bhaktanam ashribir bijate kvachit. Please chant. Nadire kanta bhaktanam ashirbi bhijite kvachit pralobito vararyatvam apramadaya vidhitat nadire kanta bhaktanam ashirbi bhijite kvachit pralobito vararyatvam apramadaya vidhitat nadire kanta bhaktanam ashirbir bijate kvachit pralobito vararyatvam adaya vidhitat nadire kanta bhaktanam ashibir bijate kvachit pralobito vararyatvam apramadaya viditat. Nadire kanta bhaktanam ashirbir bidjate kvachit pralobitaha, enticed, varai, with benedictions, yet, which fact, tvam, you, apramadaya, for showing your freedom from bewilderment. Vidi, please know, tat, that, na, not, di, the intelligence, ekanta, exclusive, bhaktanam, of devotees, ashibhi, by blessings, bidjate, is diverted, kvachit, ever. BBT translation. Understand that I enticed you with benedictions just to prove that you would not be deceived. The intelligence of my unalloyed devotees is never diverted by material blessings. There's no BBT purport. Srila Jiva Goswami says, understand that you, tempted by benedictions, would not deviate. The intelligence of my devotee, who is devoid of other worship and other desires, is not absorbed in material enjoyment. To show this, I tempted you. Palobito vararyatvam apramadaya viditat nadir ekanta bhaktanam ashirbir bidjate kvachit. Understand that I enticed you with benedictions just to prove that you would not be deceived. The intelligence of my unalloyed devotees is never diverted by material blessings. So this could, of course, mean that the devotees don't ask for material blessings. It could also mean that if they get material blessings, it doesn't disturb their bhakti. But I was thinking here in terms of how do we know what Krishna wants? That's one of the big questions devotees ask all the time. How do I know what Krishna wants? How do I know what Guru wants? I mean, some devotees have a very close relationship with their spiritual master. They see their spiritual master all the time. Their spiritual master gives them a lot of personal instruction and guidance. But that's not true for everybody. And even if you have that, at some point your spiritual master may not be available on the planet anymore. And if you have some, what does my spiritual master want me to do right now? That's not so easy. Right? Prabhupada talks about separated energy, and he gives the example of a recording of himself. And he said, on the recording of myself speaking, I am there, but I'm not there. It's my separated energy. And he said, you can't ask questions of a recording. I mean, you kind of. I mean, sometimes I'll pray to Prabhupada, and then I just happen to listen to a recording or read a purport where the answer is there. But it's not quite the same thing as being physically next to somebody and being able to ask a question and get an answer. Also, we don't want to, even if you have your guru living next door to you, you don't want to pester your guru with every single thing all the time. Right? It's not that you want to say, should I turn right or left here? Right? Like I had someone years ago who said, Urmila, I accept you as my guru, and should I buy a red mridanga or a blue mridanga? And I'm like, that's not. So it's not that one can always ask like that. So what does Krishna want? Because we're told that we should try to please the senses of Krishna. I was just hearing Prabhupada say that today, how that sense gratification doesn't stop, but the devotee is trying to please Krishna's senses. So how do we do that? And I was thinking, well, there are orders. We get orders from Krishna. We get orders from Guru. Then there's permission. So sometimes the devotee has some desire. Sometimes the desire originates from the devotee. And the devotee goes to the Lord or to Guru and asks for permission. Then there are more vague, open-ended requests that Krishna and Guru make. So an order is very specific. But then there's more open-ended, general instructions, general requests. And then what we're dealing with here today is a very odd situation. It's a test. So it sounds like an instruction, but it's not. One is actually supposed to say no to it. So that's kind of a backwards thing. Yeah. All right, so I wanted to look first at very specific orders, and I was thinking of some examples of each, but maybe some of you can also help me with these examples. So one was with Arjuna to fight. That was a very specific order. You know, I was just teaching hermeneutics at the GBC College, and one of the statements that we look at and analyze is stand and fight. That's not an absolute order of Krishna to all living entities for all time. It's not an universal, eternal, transcontextual truth. It's not even an eternal, universal, transcontextual truth for Arjuna. It's not that Arjuna should always be standing and fighting. But it's a very specific order in a very specific context. I want you to fight with these particular people at this particular time. I was thinking about Prahlad Maharaj. Right? We're just about to celebrate Nrsimha Chaturdasi, where Lord Nrsimhadev said, you rule the demons. I want you to become the king of the demons and be their ruler. I'm not sure how they all felt about that, having a devotee as their king, but I'm sure it was good for them. With the Prachetas, the 10 Prachetas, where Lord Vishnu comes and says, I want all 10 of you to marry this one girl. So this is a little unusual. Right? Draupadi had 5 husbands, and there's another woman in the Bhagavatam who married 49 fire gods. That doesn't sound, I would not want 49 husbands at all. But in this case, the Prachetas, all 10 of them married this one girl by the order of the Lord. He said, I want you all to marry this one girl who was raised by the trees, and also I want you to rule. We have Priyavrata. Priyavrata was ordered by Lord Brahma. Priyavrata had renounced the world. He was just performing austerities. He didn't want anything to do with managing a kingdom. And Lord Brahma, his guru and his great-grandfather or great-grandfather, said to him, I want you to come and rule. And it was funny that I had written this down, and then what I'm listening to right now in the morning are like random lectures. So, you know, there's Prabhupada's lectures on CC and on Ishopanishad and Bhagavatam. Right now I'm listening to random lectures. This is a lecture, it must be Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's either appearance or disappearance day. And Prabhupada's telling the whole story of how he met his spiritual master and his relationship with his spiritual master. It's just absolutely wonderful, wonderful lecture. And Prabhupada's talking about how his Guru Maharaj came to him in a dream and asked him to take sannyas in a dream twice. Right? And that Prabhupada was saying, I thought this was horrible. He said, I didn't want to take sannyas. But he came twice in a dream and ordered me to take sannyas. So I was wondering, any of you think of some very specific order like this that Krishna gives somebody or Guru gives somebody? Very specific. Oh, Prabhupada mentioned something else in the class today. He talked about how he sent Harikesh to Poland. That Harikesh was serving him, and he said, go to Poland and preach. And he said, he thought that I was rejecting him and sending him away, but actually I sent him there because he was so qualified and I knew that he would do a good job. Yeah. Can you think of any other time there's a very specific, do this specific thing? Yeah? Mm. I like that example, Dayavir Prabhu. So those of you online, he's giving the example that Prabhupada said in Mayapur that one gentleman came to him and specifically said, please translate the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That'll be good for you and your followers. And Srila Prabhupada took it that Krishna and his Guru were speaking through that man. There's some other instances of that with Srila Prabhupada, where one in India before he came to America, where one man said to him, you're printing and distributing magazines, but people throw them away. You should produce books. And then Prabhupada, of course, remembered that his Guru had told him, he told him at Radhakund, if you ever get money, print books. But Prabhupada took that instruction as Krishna speaking through that person. Another perhaps interesting, unusual one was when Prabhupada had a stroke and he was in the hospital and he was just lying in bed chanting, and the doctor came and saw him and said, the old man's praying too much, he needs to get exercise. And the devotees were horrified. And they said, you can't talk to our master like this. Prabhupada said, no, he is right. This is Krishna speaking through him. And then Prabhupada started doing regular morning walks and getting massage. Things like that. Anyone else think of an example of a direct, very specific order? Oh, actually, Prabhupada said that to Gopal Krishna before he was a sannyasi. Yes, Ekayani came to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I really want to get married. And Gopal Krishna was standing there, and Prabhupada said, Gopal Krishna's a nice boy, he'll marry you. And he just followed. Prabhupada did that with Jagatarini. She was an Australian movie star. And he sent Burjan to preach in, Hong Kong. And he needed a wife. And Prabhupada told Jagatarini, sight unseen, go to Hong Kong and marry Burjan. And she did that, so yeah. Yeah? Oh, yes. When Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna Maharaj, don't come back until you bought the property in Mayapur. Yeah, what's the name of that devotee? Mandakini. Prabhupada sent Mandakini to Russia to marry the devotee there and to preach. Well, Krishna's sending Uddhava to Vrindavan. Uddhava, go to Vrindavan, bring this message to my devotees. Who did he send to Hastinapur? Who did Krishna send to us to Hastinapur? That was Akrura, to check out what was going on. Give him an assessment. Go to Hastinapur, find out about Dhritarashtra's intrigues. It was a very, very specific order. Yeah? Oh, but that we're going to, okay, so, well, that's okay. We'll add that to our test category. I'm going to add that one to our test category. So for the wives of the Brahmanas, that was an order. Go back home, serve your husbands, help them with the yajna. Okay, now we're going to go to permission. So many times devotees feel that everything always has to be in order. You know, that I have to get an order, and unless and until I get an order, I'm just kind of inert. But I think of that then that we're thinking of ourselves kind of like a machine. Right? Like my computer's just sitting in my room. I haven't given it any orders for today. And so it's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. It doesn't have any volition. But Krishna actually appreciates when devotees take some initiative. He actually appreciates that. And just like here at the temple, Leela Shakti has told me so many times how she appreciates when devotees take initiative, right? Sometimes she's actually complained and said, oh, this person, they're a nice person, but they never take any initiative. I always have to just tell them what to do. It's actually annoying if you're managing something and you always have to tell everybody what to do all the time. It's annoying. Yes, everybody's had this experience if you're managing someone else. It's nice if they take some initiative. But also one should ask permission. I mean, obviously for little things, if you see some weeds growing in the sidewalk, you don't have to ask anyone's permission. Just pull up the weeds. But for anything big, one should ask permission. So I was thinking of some examples of this. This is Maharaj Yudhisthira with the Rajasuya sacrifice. He said, Krishna, I want to do the Rajasuya sacrifice because I want people to see that your devotees are blessed. I want people to see that your devotees are victorious. May I have permission for this? I was just actually reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked permission to travel to South India. So because he's taking the role of a devotee, he goes to the senior devotees, he goes to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, may I go to South India? Mahaprabhu also asked permission to go to Vrindavan. It was very actually difficult for him to go to Vrindavan because everybody kept saying, later, 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 later. Kardama Muni asking for a wife. Thinking about Sanatana Goswami asking Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu if he could go to Vrindavan. I was thinking about Lord Brahma, who asked the Lord for permission and empowerment to create the universe. So I was wondering if anybody else had any thoughts about asking permission. Yes, I do. Took Lord Chaitanya 2 years to get permission to go to Vrindavan. Yeah, they kept delaying him. Well, after this happens, well, after this happens, well, after that happens. It wasn't as hard for him to go to South India as it was for him to go to Vrindavan. Yeah? Oh, that's an interesting one. Vamandev asking for 3 steps of land, asking permission from the devotee, taking this reverse role, like Lord Chaitanya asking for permission. What? What? I should give up my nonsense job and surrender to the temple? Thank you. Oh, all right, well. That sounded like an order, Prabhu. Didn't sound like asking. We're in the permission category. You need to ask permission. Yeah. We give some other examples of anyone asking permission where the initiative came from them. There's Tamal Krishna Maharaj who wanted to take a traveling Sankirtana party in America. This is kind of an interesting story because he was the GBC for India. India at that time was one monolithic entity in terms of the GBC. There was one GBC for the whole of India because this kind of India wasn't that developed. And of course, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was one of Srila Prabhupada's most competent managers. You know, most fixed up, steady devotees and most competent managers rolled into one. You don't always find that, right? And so Prabhupada wanted him to stay as GBC of India. I mean, Prabhupada really wanted him to stay as, he did not want him to leave, but Tamal Krishna Maharaj was insistent. I want to preach in America. I want to take buses. I want to go all over America and distribute books. And finally, Srila Prabhupada relented. It wasn't such an easy thing. That was when Gopal Krishna became GBC of India to replace Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So in that case, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was asking for permission, and Prabhupada granted it. And of course, then Srila Prabhupada was very, very happy. Prabhupada would talk often about the traveling buses. Actually, I just heard this a few days ago in a class where Prabhupada was bragging about how his devotees were taking buses all over America and distributing books. Okay, then there's more open-ended requests. So I was just hearing this today where Prabhupada was talking about his spiritual master, and he was saying that the student is supposed to become guru. He said, not that you're a disciple and you just stay a student. You're supposed to become guru. He said, we expect that all of our disciples are going to become guru and in this way continue the parampara, not that you just stay a student. And then he said, of course, you also always stay a student. So that's a very open-ended request. He's not talking to a specific person and giving them a very specific instruction. It's a general instruction. And it's very open-ended. And also when he was talking about how he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, it was very interesting. He was saying that he was 25. He said, I was a young man, 25, married. He said, I was a manager in, what was his name? Bose's pharmacy, I guess, is whatever, his company. He was a manager in Bose's company. And some friends came to him and said, we'd like you to come and see a sadhu. And Prabhupada said, I don't want to see any sadhus. I don't trust any of these sadhus. Prabhupada said, I had very bad experience growing up that my father would always invite all these so-called sadhus for prasad. He said my father was very liberal. And anybody who sort of looked like a sadhu or smelled like a sadhu, you would have him over and feed them. But most of them were bogus. And so Prabhupada had become very cynical. I was thinking about this. It's so interesting, that Prabhupada had this really, and I don't want to see a sadhu. He said, but my good friend practically forced me. He said, no, this sadhu is different. You have to come see this sadhu. So these two young men, they're seeing him for the first time. They just walk in the room seeing Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Prabhupada said, and he immediately said to us, you are educated young men, why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya's movement in Western countries? Sometimes Prabhupada describes that as, why don't you preach in English to English-speaking people? This particular class, he said, why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya's movement in Western countries? And Prabhupada said, I was immediately impressed because he said, I came from a Vaishnava family. We were all followers of Lord Chaitanya. And I thought, here's a real representative of Lord Chaitanya. And Prabhupada said, from that moment, I considered that I had become his disciple. He said, I felt that that was my initiation. He said, I didn't formally take initiation for 11 years. But at that point, I decided, yes, this is my guru. And then Prabhupada said it wasn't until he had, many years later, 11 years later, when he had his own business, and he was moved to Allahabad, I think it was, and he said then the Gaudiya Math members came to see him, because he said they had been told, oh, this Abhay Babu, he's a very religious man, you should go ask him for a donation. He said, so they came to me and asked me to donate. He said, at that time I took formal initiation. He said, but I didn't follow this instruction of my spiritual master for a very long time. I was thinking, well, I'm a family man, I'm not competent, how will I do it? Of course, Prabhupada started Back to Godhead magazine in English when he was in India. And he tried preaching, he did some preaching in English in India. But that was a very general instruction. There's other places where Srila Prabhupada talks about how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had sent disciples to London, and Prabhupada was thinking, should I go to London? And he thought, well, the world has changed. He said it used to be that people were looking to the British, but now they're looking to the Americans. And if I preach to the Americans, they'll be able to influence the world. So let me go to New York. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur didn't say to Srila Prabhupada, go to New York. Do you follow what I'm saying? It wasn't like, Arjuna, get up, pick up your Gandiva bow and shoot it at the Kurus. Or here, Uddhava, take this message and deliver it to the gopis in Vrindavan. It didn't have that kind of specificity. It was a general thing. Preach in English to English-speaking people. Preach in Western countries. And Srila Prabhupada took that and he made it specific. He just thought, where am I going to go? How am I going to preach? Or deciding that he was going to have something that he called a love feast on Sunday. Prabhupada was doing that because he saw, oh, in America people go to church on Sunday. It's not a thing in India. And he saw that the counterculture people were having things called love feasts. And so he said, okay, well, we'll call it a love feast and we'll do it on Sunday. So that wasn't a specific, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur didn't say, I want you to have a love feast every Sunday. But he said, I want you to preach in the Western countries. And within that general instruction, Srila Prabhupada worked out the specificities. I was also thinking about when Krishna makes this request of Uddhava, actually in one of the seminars I was at in Gita Nagari, Prabhupada Priya was talking about this. She was giving examples of how Krishna is demonstrating good leadership when he's in charge in Dwarka. And she was saying how he asked Uddhava when Krishna is requested both by Yudhisthira to attend the Rajasuya and by the imprisoned kings to free them from Jarasandhar, that Krishna turns to Uddhava and he makes a very open-ended request. He says, my dear Uddhava, what do you think we should do? What's your general advice? Again, it wasn't specific. And then Uddhava comes up with something very specific. Well, I think that we should go to see Maharaj Yudhisthira to do the Rajasuya. As part of the Rajasuya, we're going to have to get the allegiance of all the kings, and that will include Jarasandhar. And then when we go to get the allegiance of Jarasandhar, he definitely won't give that allegiance, and therefore we can have this subterfuge with Bhima and Arjuna going in disguise. So Uddhava gives this whole thing from Krishna making a general request. Uddhava supplies the specificity, which then Krishna accepts. I was thinking also where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked the Goswamis to go to Vrindavan and excavate the places of pilgrimage, excavate the Leelastans. And again, it was a general instruction. And then they take it and, okay, where are the places? Here's where Mahaprabhu bathed in a paddy field, so this is Radhakund, Shamakund. How are we going to excavate it? It was very interesting because Raghunath Das Goswami was in many ways the visionary of the excavation, say, of Radhakund, Shamakund, but it was Srila Jiva Goswami who actually did the management of it. So that wasn't a specific instruction. It wasn't that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, okay, Raghunath Das Goswami, you be the visionary person, Srila Jiva Goswami, you be the technical, hands-on, administrative manager. It was a general thing, and they worked out some specificity of how to do that. So, of course, we have many instructions like that from Srila Prabhupada. You know, distribute my books. And, you know, when I joined the movement, we were not distributing big books, practically ever. We were mostly distributing Back to Godhead magazines. And then there was a devotee who sold a Krishna book at a gas station. He exchanged the book for gas. And it was like, oh, we can actually sell big books on the street to people. It was a revelation. And then I remember the BBT party coming, Mula Prakriti and my godbrother Pragosh and Tripurari and Sarva Bhavana. They came and they trained us in Chicago at the airport. They said, you know, you can't wear just these saffron polycotton bolts of cloth. You know, you've got to get some nice silk bolts of cloth, or you wear just like a skirt and a jacket, you know, and you have a button that says Apple Records that you wear, and you show people the forward from George Harrison, and you present it like this. So Prabhupada wasn't giving that kind of specificity. He wasn't saying, go to O'Hare Airport, but he was saying, distribute my books, and within that, we can understand, okay, how are we going to be doing this? Can anyone think of any other examples of general instructions? Chant and be happy. Any other examples of broad instructions, and we're supposed to fill in the details? By the way, that's how Srila Prabhupada used the phrase, do the needful. He never used the phrase, do the needful, for do work that's not your nature. And I've heard people use it that way. Prabhupada never used it that way. The way he used it was, here's a general instruction, you fill in the details. You work out with the details. Yes? Oh, I really like that. Yes, Srila Prabhupada he gave some detailed instructions about Gurukula, but not many. And I sometimes give that as an example, that Srila Prabhupada didn't give me instructions on how to teach English spelling. You know, he didn't say, well, this is the way you should teach kids how to spell, or this is the way you should teach kids how to do mathematics. So it was a general that actually Prabhupada wanted a school in every center. But the details of how to do that, yes, he left that up to us. Any other general requests? 24-hour kirtan in Vrindavan. Of course, that's reasonably specific. But yeah, I guess the details of how to do that. But that's a little bit more specific. Yeah?
I think first you wanted it all the temples. Definitely Mayapur and Vrindavan.
The first Prabhupada wanted
First general, then a specific.
Oh, okay. So 24-hour kirtan in general, and then Mayapur and Vrindavan. All right, then to the category we're looking at in today's verse, the test. The test, where the right answer isn't obvious. So like I'm putting together little tests. We're making a course for Career Dharma online, and one of the real challenges, as a teacher, I never wrote multiple choice exams. I didn't like them. I don't like it. It's just at a knowledge base of learning. I like things that work with higher levels of learning. But with a computer-scored exam, you don't really have a choice. It's an on or an off. So I'm having to do these multiple choice questions. And what I'm realizing, because I never wrote them before, is that you have to put in wrong answers that sound right. That's extremely difficult. Putting in the right answers is easy. But then I've got to put in some things that are going to mess people up. I've got to put in some things that sound like it's right, but it isn't right. And then, you know, somebody was pointing out to me, well, if it sounds right, I'm going to think it is right. You know, where do you make that line so it's definitely not right? So Krishna, will ask, and Guru will ask devotees something that sounds like it's good, but it's not. What benediction would you like? Now, sometimes this is actually a test of that devotee's advancement, and other times, like in today's verse, Krishna already knows that Muchukunda is on this level, and he's testing him in order to show the world. He's putting the devotee in a situation where there's some sort of temptation or there's some kind of difficulty, so that the devotee will showcase how to act. So he's saying here, ekanta bhakta, your meditation is ekanta on bhakti, and you're not going to be deviated, but I wanted to show, right? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Jiva Goswami, saying he wants to show others. Just see, my devotee is not going to be bewildered. And this was, also Krishna says that this is why he left the Ras Lila. He says he left the Ras Lila to show the world that the gopis would not reject him, even though he apparently rejected them. And if you think about, I talk about this in my class on chapter 32, the backstory, how that these sadhana siddha gopis, they had been the personified Vedas, or they'd been the sages in the Dandakaranya forest, and they had waited literally for millions or billions of years. That's a long time. I had a flight delayed yesterday by 20 minutes, and that seemed like a long time. Okay, you're going to have to wait 3 million years for your flight to take off. They're waiting that long, and then they come and they see Krishna, and he steals their clothes, and he says later. And then he calls them, and he tells them to go home. That's another test, where he tells them to go home, and they don't go home. And then they say, we're not going home. And then he's with them, and they're embracing, and they're laughing, and they're joking. And then he just leaves them. And they say, who does that? In the material life, if some guy that you've been wanting to go out with for 10 years invites you on a date, and you're out at the restaurant, and he excuses himself to go to the toilet, and he disappears, you're probably not going to go out with him anymore. And the gopis could have just said, hey, forget it. But they didn't. They remained faithful. And Krishna says, I did this to show the world your exalted bhakti. I was saying about Krishna with Rukmini when he tells her how she should leave. Right? And she faints. And Krishna says, I did this. I was just wanted you to argue with me. I was also thinking about something that I've spoken of in depth, and I find very fascinating about Dharma. Krishna with Arjuna regarding Asvatthama, where Krishna says to Arjuna, okay, you've got to satisfy me, you've got to satisfy Bhima, you've got to satisfy everyone, and Arjuna passes this test, how to expertly apply Dharma in a very difficult situation. So we looked at orders, permission, open-ended requests, and tests, in order to understand what Guru and Krishna want.
Haribo.
Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Buddha Sundaranga Kandar ako Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobha
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Tiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishnaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurvani Vacha Vinay Nivasesha Shunyavani Bhatshatagane Zatanane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gaur Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gaur Bhakta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasati Gaur Bhakta Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasade Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasade Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Goloka Nana Radha, Goloka Nana Radha. Jaya Radha, Goloka Nana Radha, Goloka Nana Radha. Jaya Radha, Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe. Jai Om.
Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Apanam Shreya Kairavya Chandrika Vitaranam Vijavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Yam Pranamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Arvijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Etadrishita Bakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Suhishuna Amani Namanadena Kirtane Sudahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatat Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayata Vapada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrashim Vachintaya Nayanam Galata Shudaraya Varanam Gadgada Udaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlishyavapadamratam Panastumam Adarshana marmahata karotuva. Yatataba vidnatatu lampada mat prananatastu sevanapara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. And can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. It is anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditional.